So I want to make a quick video going over the basic equipment that you might need if you're going to consider making your own glazes, as well as a book I recommend you buy and some recipes out of that book. So let's talk equipment. Hopefully you already have a dust mask. If you're doing any sanding of your bisqueware or dry sweeping your floors and not mopping, you should definitely own one of these, but it should go without saying if you're dealing with dry chemicals, you should be using some sort of a mask. You may also already have a paint mixer. I 3D print my own. I keep a bunch around. It's helpful to have, I'd say, at least 3 or 4, depending how many glazes you're working with, but you're going to need a paint mixer if you don't have one. But beyond that, all I find I really needed in the end was in this case, an 80 mesh sieve. 80, 100, 120 are the numbers that you're going to see. 100, of course they come in different meshes as well, but those are the ones that seem common to a pottery studio. 80 mesh is what works for me. 100 would probably also be just as good. If you're going to want to take specific gravity readings of your glaze to kind of keep track of how much water's in it, I recommend you do that. An easy way to do that is with disposable syringes. You suck up your glaze to, in my case, I use 50 mil, and I'll weigh that, and I'll make a note when I'm glazing and I'm doing tests. That's how I keep track of specific gravity, which is not the same thing as viscosity, which is another topic, but this is an easy, inexpensive way to make sure you remember how much water you had in your glaze when you tested it. And then, of course, some sort of a scale. I really like a triple beam in that I have a digital scale as well, but it always seems to have the batteries dead on it. There's just no batteries, and it might take a second or two longer, but not much longer to set these up, and I find the process, I don't know, it's kind of fun. I like that. So I recommend that you get something that has a fair degree of accuracy. So getting one of those $20 kitchen scales is just not going to work. It might work when you're mixing really large amounts, but when you're using something like this and making your own glazes, you're making 100-gram batches, 200-gram batches, small amounts where your additives might only be 1 or 2 grams, and anyways, 1/10 of a gram is I think a minimum. So what I really want to speak to are to the people who are thinking about starting to make glazes and just don't know where to begin. And what I recommend you do first is get a couple good books. Yeah, I bought a half a dozen and I went through them all. They were fine. I was not impressed with the recipe books, except for this one. John Britt made 2 of these books, one in mid-range and one for cone 10 glazes. Both books are really good because I fire cone 5. My recipes come largely out of this book, and so I can't recommend this enough. I got in contact with John Britt. I asked him, hey, is it okay if I do a video and share out some of these recipes that I like? And he said, sure, not a problem. Open source, no big deal. So that's nice. Yeah, but I recommend that if you're going to sit down, you're going to read these books, and you're going to start making lists of, if you're like me, you're going to make lists of all the recipes that look good, things you might want to try, trying to keep track of all the materials that are in all of those. So maybe by the end of your readings, it'll just somehow come together as this list of materials that you're going to want to get. And man, that does not work so good, because in the end you need to figure out from your supplier what their materials list are. In this case, my local supplier gets their chemicals through Laguna, and this is what it looks like. You know, they list out different, so you want silica, you have 200 mesh, 325, I don't know, some other type. That in itself is kind of confusing, and you're going to have to just grin and bear it. A lot of times you can look up each one of these and get a description of what the difference is. Sometimes it doesn't really even matter. You might want to call your supplier and ask what the prices are at different quantities for ingredients if you start winnowing your list down. But get yourself a list of what your supplier has available when you start going through your book. Keep these side by side, and make sure when you find a recipe, after a while you'll start recognizing ingredients, but make sure that that's what you can get. A case in point is you might see something that says F4 feldspar, and then you realize that your supplier doesn't sell F4 feldspar, but maybe Minspar 200 would be an alternative. Well, you want to make sure that your supplier has Minspar 200 on its list, or you might want to just skip that recipe, tag it for future thinking. But that's how I'd start. Get your list, get a good book, and work together to figure out what glazes look the most interesting to you. So let's get to some recipes. So the book is organized by kind of like by color groups, and this Glossy Base 2 I use a lot. I refer to it as GB2 if I ever say that. That's what I mean. That's what the recipe is. And if you're going to make your own glazes and you don't know where to begin, start by figuring out a clear and a white recipe that works on your clay. Get a clear, get a white, and then you can play around with adding colorants and oxides to those two bases. But if you have to pick one place to focus on getting a good clear and a good white, and from there you can do all sorts of fun things. Okay, glaze number 2. Oil spot combination. So this is 2 glazes. The Temku is a darker glaze that goes on first, and second is the associated combo that goes over the top. Again, that's on page 90, and turns out something like this. It's fun. Depends how thick you put the Temku on, determines how big these spots are, but it's a fun glaze to use. Next glaze, page 91 under oatmeals, Tombuck cream breaking rust. You can see it there. And I'm firing all of these electric, so when I show you examples like the oil spot a moment ago, I'm firing electric, I'm firing it to cone 5. That's the recipe. This is an example of what it looks like. Depends how thick you put it on. It can be really white, or much lighter with more speckles, but it breaks nice. It's a fun glaze. The next glaze is on page 108, Chun Seafoam. This one's really fun. I use this on a lot of outdoor pottery, just for what it's worth. It ends up looking really good on succulent pots. But there's the recipe. And this is what it looks like. And it breaks. This isn't a great example, but it does break to kind of a gold or a dark like that when it hits highs and lows. It's a really pretty glaze. People really like it. Alright, next glaze, page 117, John's Noxzema. A really dark, shiny blue. You got that? This is what it looks like in my kiln. Really shiny blue. It can have pinholing. I've had to add an extra ramp hold on my electric firing schedule to let it drop the temperature and sit for a little bit before it cools down to help get rid of any pinholing, but it is really pretty. Also good, this being so bold, it's for layering and for kind of dribbling on other things if you're going for something wild. It can be a lot. It can be a little too bold sometimes all by itself, but is a fun glaze to keep around for putting on other things. Next glaze, Floating Blue. I really like this glaze. It's Floating Blue 2 from page 119. There's your recipe. Find it really stable. Haven't had any problem with crazing or crawling or fitment. I like how it breaks to that kind of gold color. And if this is thicker, it gets quite blue too. So you can see it kind of building there. It gets a little more blue, but yeah, good glaze. And for the last glaze I'm going to give you, recipe 4 is on page 158, and that is Ashley's Rivulet. You probably recognize that name if you watched the layering video a couple days ago when I was doing these bottles, and this is the Rivulet dip that I dipped on the rim on top of all the others. So if you were wondering what the recipe was for that, it's what I just showed you. There's so much to talk about on this topic that there's absolutely no way I can do the idea of starting to make your own glazes any justice in a video this short. But that really wasn't my point. I wanted to hopefully demystify it, and if you have no experience and it just, it seems like you're going to have to do a lot of math and chemistry or learn software or who knows what, it's not that hard. The amount of equipment you need outside of a bunch of buckets is not intensive, and it's fun if you like doing that sort of thing. And I think it makes the most sense when you're dealing with glaze that you're going to use a lot of. If you want a trash can full of a glaze to be able to dip huge pots into, then learning how to make that glaze might not be a bad idea. So I hope that was helpful. Go out and buy John Britt's book, well worth the read, and yeah, that's it.